Welcome back to another episode of Let's Face the Facts. I'm your host. My name is David Almeida, and every week I sit down with an actor or artist friend. We watch an episode of the classic sitcom, The Facts of Life. Then I hit record, we talk about the show, synopsize the show, and give a lot of commentary and criticism, and of course, most importantly, worship of a show that we absolutely love. My guest this week is Natalie Doliner. Natalie is a crazy talented, multifaceted lady. She is a singer. She's a dancer. She's a producer. She's a director. She's a very good friend of mine. We've done many a cabaret together. And she's also a doctor of Oriental medicine, a.k.a. an acupuncturist. So Dr. Natalie Doliner and I watched Season 4, Episode 3 was called The Sound of Silence, and the original air date was October 6th, 1982. Before we proceed, this is the first week my Patreon has been up and running, so I need to start thanking my new patrons, or as I call them, my Tutti Fruities, who now sponsor the show. It's very interesting that the first weekend it was live, I always talk about my fives of listeners. Well, I have 5 new patrons. How fitting. Anyway, I want to welcome to the Tutti Fruities, Andrea L., Brian F., Michelle B., Pam M., and Lisa M. You guys are awesome. I so appreciate it. And if you wish to become a patron of the show, head over to patreon.com/facethefactspod. Okay, are we ready to jump on into this week now? I think so. Let's face the facts with Natalie Doliner. Well, hello and welcome,
Hi.
Natalie Doliner.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited.
Yeah, finally. You're one of the inner sanctum, the people I've referred to before as the close friends I keep in my back pocket. You said you must have had a cancellation.
I figured,
But no.
I always come when I'm called. That's what they say on the bathroom wall anyway.
Is it?
So, yeah.
Ba-dum-bum. Well, we have watched okay, we before we even start with the title of the show, it is called The Sounds of Silence. I thought it was called The Sound of Silence, singular, because that's what it says on the Wikipedia page. And I'm inclined to believe...
Because everything on Wikipedia is right.
It's on the internet,
because
damn it.
anybody can write on it. That's how you know it's true.
Exactly. So, but the thing is, looking at the DVD box, which really kind of has to be considered the definitive, this is from the producers, creators, it says The Sounds, plural.
I'm so impressed by this box, I can't even tell you.
And it has them listed. Well, this is,
Wow.
several.
Sounds of Silence.
So
Multiple.
according to the DVD, it's called The Sounds of Silence.
Because all the things you're not hearing.
Multiple silence.
Yeah.
It's even deeper. But then you just heard me before we started recording. I pulled up on my phone. I was like, well, what's the name of the Simon and Garfunkel song? It's The Sound, singular.
Shouldn't it be The Sounds of Silences?
And hello, darkness, my old friend.
No, I mean the show. The Sounds of Silences.
But why, if you're
not hearing anything plural as opposed to not
the
hearing
sounds
anything
of silences, shouldn't it be the
singular.
sound of silences?
Sound of a silencer. That's a whole different show. Okay.
The silence. Well,
Silence of Sounds.
Well, okay.
Next
Putting
Fringe show.
the title aside, we watched what I will now heretofore refer to as The Sounds of Silence. Any previous references to sound, I am wrong, as is Wikipedia. But we watched it, and boy, oh boy, it was quite an episode.
It was so awful.
But I concur.
And delightful.
Absolutely, and I loved every minute of hating it.
Exactly.
So before we start, Natalie, tell me, what was your relationship with the show? Did you grow up watching it? Did you watch it in reruns?
No, I'll tell you the truth. I watched it in reruns when I was homesick and had nothing better to do.
Mm-hmm.
But
like many.
By the time this show came out, it started in 79? I'd already graduated from high school.
Oh, okay.
And was watching things that I could choose to watch. I'd already moved away from home and everything.
Oh, yeah.
This is not something I would have chosen to watch on purpose, so I didn't. I'm sorry. I know it probably was a favorite of yours, but
yeah, but no.
it was not one of mine. It was only if there was nothing else on because, there weren't a lot of channel choices.
No.
And I had nothing better to do, which is usually meant I was homesick.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
Taking a break from drinking. What can I tell you?
And as a high school graduate in 1979, you are totally not the target audience. You're old.
No.
You were.
I was old then. I'm old now.
No, that's not what I meant. I'm sorry.
But it's true. It's true.
So, before we start into the deep stuff and the many questions you told me you have, I always like to ask my guests to do a quick, just 2-sentence synopsis, like you might read in the TV guide, so people understand what did we just watch.
Okay. It's an episode where Tootie is supposed to be worried about losing her hearing, but really there's a lot of other stuff to be seriously worried about.
Beautiful. Yes. Yeah.
So many questions.
Yeah. Of all the problems this episode presents, the hearing is the least of them.
Absolutely.
It's so
minor.
I think like next to Brian and Sylvia, as far as the interracial awful backdoor pilot that they tried at the end of season 2, I think this is my least favorite episode. Like, I cannot remember one I enjoyed less than this. Now, interesting fact, this is season 3 episode, season 4.
Episode 3.
Episode 3. But if you look at the production information, which is on Wikipedia, this is actually the first episode they filmed for the new season. So this was, I don't know if they intentionally broadcast them out of order, if they decided to go with stronger episodes first, but this was the first one.
Stronger than this one?
I know.
It's hard to imagine.
This one would have been shown at 2 a.m. Opposite the Star Spangled Banner. So yeah, we can let's do this and start getting into it right here. We start in the cafeteria.
Okay. Is it just me? I mean,
you said you had questions from the first frame.
Many
do
questions.
It.
All right. So Joe is for some reason waxing a floor. Okay, the chairs are up in this cafeteria, right?
Yeah.
So that she can wax the floor. Mm-hmm. Cafeterias are used to serve, I'm guessing, meals?
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, Joe is wearing her school uniform.
Yeah.
She's not attending a class at this moment.
Yeah.
However, in walk, who the first two? Blair, I think, first comes in, right? Well, Mrs. Geri, Mrs. Geri comes in.
Yeah,
okay,
Blair.
But within the first minute,
Blair's
we've
first.
established that it is now lunchtime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Geri is taking Blair
to
lunch.
First of all, what kind of school allows them to have so much time that they can actually go out for lunch? We got 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Personally. But okay, never mind that. Yeah. She's washing what seems to be the main means of egress. And she's waxing this floor. Is she trying to kill them?
Yeah.
And secondly, if it's lunchtime and they're in the cafeteria, shouldn't they be serving food?
Yeah.
And why are we waxing a floor while everybody's supposed to be coming in to eat?
In the middle of the day.
In the middle of the day. And she's getting mad. And no one, Mrs. Geri, doesn't say to her, well, Joe, I can't do her voice. You'll have to do it. Why don't you wait until there's no one around?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
It should be SOP that you wax the floors at night.
Right.
That it's after closing kind of a thing.
But
yeah, I agree with you. They put that in there because there is this
otherwise Joe's not in the scene.
Well, Joe's not in the scene, but there's also a running gag of them walking through. That's the comedy they're trying to create in this otherwise dreadful scene.
Blair has the most logical line of anyone. Oh, excuse me for walking on the floor. Well,
yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
or you.
true.
It's the only way into the building, apparently,
right.
at this moment.
Yes.
So,
you are so right. And I've often cited how, as a cafeteria, how rarely we ever see food. And even when they're cleaning up, it'll be plates with crumpled up napkins on them. And there's so many problems here.
Up.
Yeah, and the chairs are up, but
it's over, but she's about to go to lunch.
Yeah, and all of them are wearing their uniforms. All of them. So this is clearly a school day.
Right, they're in the middle of the day. We know
it is a school day.
For lunch.
And even when they're not in their uniforms, I have cited it's a weekend. People still eat. You got 3 meals a day to hash out.
But we know it's not a weekend because within moments, Tootie and Natalie come walking in the middle of an argument that's my next question.
Okay, next question.
Tootie is younger than everybody, right?
Just by a year.
So she's in the same classes.
Again, Natalie, you are asking questions that have been asked by the ages on this podcast.
Because Natalie and Tootie are attending. Okay, they're attending a drama class,
Which is an elective. You could say there might be a mixture, maybe.
So this leads to my next question. Is it okay to jump into these? Because
Do it.
From what I remember of drama classes, one chooses a scene that exists in life.
Yes.
Picks a partner.
Yes.
Discusses what's going to be done and presents said scene to audience for some kind of grade.
Yeah.
Right? But
published so that you can have some type of a barometer to know if it's a good King Lear or a shitty King Lear.
So apparently, in this particular scenario, Natalie has written a scene that Tootie does not know anything about until suddenly she's presenting it. Okay, and then, what is she, 16?
Yeah.
Year-old girl has come up with the joke. Now, we understand that she's supposed to be some kind of aged Jewish man. It gives them a chance to have these jokes on her.
Yeah.
But she's supposed to have thought of...
Yeah.
Should I even repeat the joke? Just said, you've only touched me once in the last year. Explain. I made a mistake. I don't even remember the joke anymore.
I didn't even...
Yeah, it was a sex joke. It was just so inappropriate. I just couldn't even.
You are totally right that we have got this combination performance / playwriting class that has meshed together and also is an elective that girls from multiple grades can go to. Because right now, Tootie is a sophomore, Natalie is a junior, and Blair and Joe are seniors, is where we are in this season.
Right.
But yes, that all happens. We do need to point out, before that, we have the return of Roy. Roy, the Roy? Bakery delivery guy.
I didn't know if he was recurring. Remember, this show is, I'm new here, stranger in this land.
Roy is a recurring character because they thought, we need someone to molest the tomboy. And he has been on once before. In this, Roy just comes in to be all lovey-dovey with Joe, and he keeps calling her my pet, and don't worry, baby. And she's like, Roy, fuck off and die. And he's like, I like my women mean. Rawr. And in the first episode, we saw him. There was a likability about him. The fact that it wasn't. He doesn't come off as arrogant, cocky. I'm not taking no for an answer. There's just
creepy.
Yeah. This episode, it sort of starts veering into creepy because it's like, he's really not getting, read the room. And
he does it to Blair on the way out.
Yeah.
But she likes it.
Yeah. And but we've talked about many times, read the room. Joe is clearly not happy and or very busy trying to wax this floor.
In the middle of the day.
In the middle of the day. So Blair comes in. Blair is wearing the blue blazer. Blair's blue blazer, very important to me. And that's where we learn Geri is taking Blair to lunch. And then in come Natalie and everybody, of course, is stepping on the floor. Right. Natalie and Tootie come in arguing. And this is a common thing to have the entrance line be, I don't see why you just couldn't have done the scene that went blah, blah, blah. So they're arguing back and forth. What the annoying thing is that Natalie is of the opinion that Tootie ruined her beautiful scene that she wrote for drama class, but Tootie's pushback is it's written lousy and I can't play it and I can't act it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, gee, it's a good thing there's no, adult or a teacher or anybody here to mediate this in the classroom setting. And then Cousin Geri arrives. And we love when Geri is just kind of woven into the fabric of the show. So
yet another question, but yes, okay.
Yeah, she was on I think a dozen episodes over 3 or 4 years.
She just conveniently arrives to take Blair to lunch because she's performing at not the Howard Johnsons. What is it? Some comic lounge at
the Howard Johnsons. The Howard Johnsons. It was at the Howard Johnsons. Yeah, we need to address this. Now, Geri is a stand-up comic. Geri Jewell was a stand-up. That's how she was discovered.
I get that.
And Geri Tyler, first appearance, they called her Geri Warner and realized, she can't be Blair's cousin through Blair's mother and have the same last name. So Geri Warner was the first time we met her. West Virginia,
sorry.
Yeah, Alabama. Then she became Geri.
She's my sister. She's
my mother, my sister, my daughter, my daughter. But she became Geri Tyler. And so Geri Tyler is also a comedian and a stand-up comic. Now, here's the interesting thing. There was an episode where she had a brief fling romance with one of the teachers at Eastland because she's grown up. She's not a student. She's Blair's cousin. And when the teacher met her, he said, "Wait a minute. I feel like I've seen you or I recognize you." And she's like, "Oh, really?" And he says, "You were on the Merv Griffin show." And she corrects him and says, "Well, actually, it was Mike Douglas," or vice versa. But the idea is he recognized her from television. And those two shows were huge. Those were like the 4:30 p.m. time slot when Mom was making dinner. Mm-hmm. Like that was, both Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas were popular shows.
Yes, I know.
So to be a stand-up comedian, to appear on that is achieving, I think, a mid to high level of fame.
And from that to the Howard Johnson.
And now she's back at the Howard Johnson. She was at like the Elks Club.
Have you not seen This Is Spinal Tap? It happens to everyone. And apparently she's begun the downward spiral.
Hey.
So she must be staying there because what she say? If I make them laugh, they'll connect to my television.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
We need her to sit, we need a joke here, so put in a funny line, and if we think of something funny.
They couldn't have asked her to write one. She's a comedian.
You'd think.
Yeah, and they don't seem to mind exposing their own writing. I mean, the Bickersons, going back, was one of the funniest shows ever.
Well,
really,
I'm
it
not
was.
familiar.
I'm old. See, I know these things. The Bickersons are funny.
Really?
Yeah.
While they're there in the cafeteria, Natalie says, "Let's do the scene again, and let's let them decide." And I think Geri too. You know funny, Geri.
She's excited because she's a professional there.
Yeah, I have a professional opinion because you're a professional. You work at the Howard Johnsons. So she says, "Natalie, let's do the scene again." And Tootie says, "I don't do garbage." It's like, girl.
Right?
You are besties. And I get that when people are close to you, you can give them shit and you can be a little more blunt with them, but that is hitting below the belt.
But it's okay because Mrs. Garrett is there to make it all right.
Yeah.
Except she doesn't.
No. So they do the scene and it is like...
Can we just back up? Because Mrs. Garrett did something that made me really... Because when she says, "I don't do garbage," and... Natalie says, "Mrs. Garrett," do you remember what Mrs. Garrett says? No. "Do the garbage."
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So, yes, there's your
not
adult...
don't call it garbage.
No, right, exactly. To do the garbage.
Yeah,
I mean, play the scene. Like,
not, hey, talk nice to your fucking friend.
Exactly.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So that was shocking. And then they play the scene, and it's a husband and wife at home. And they both play it so awfully. Like, there's a sense of intentional bad performance about it.
But the jokes are also so adult.
Yeah, well,
this
the middle-aged,
is not just bickering.
The vaudevillian. Yeah, we talk about the vaudevillian middle-aged writers and how often those voices are coming out of these teenage girls so often and so illogically. You're totally right.
In 5 years, you touched me once. Why? Was a mistake.
Yeah.
What?
These girls will be virgins until they're 22 years old, okay? It's like, yeah, no, you're right. So anyhow, it's terrible. And at one point, Natalie is standing behind Tootie and says her line, and Tootie doesn't pick up her cue. Tootie doesn't respond. And she says, "Tootie, what? Would you pick up your cues? That's part of the reason why I think the scene didn't work." And she's standing in a weird place. And Tootie at one point says, "This is my best side," does she say? Or something weird like that. Anyhow, it's a really weird scene. And then Mrs. Garrett says, "Oh, that's the Bickersons. I used to love them on the radio." And Natalie's like, "What?" No one has ever written a comedically bickering husband and wife ever before in the history of show business. I'm the pioneer. I'm the trailblazer here. And that does make sense, by the way. Mrs. Garrett, if assuming she and Charlotte Rae are the same age. Charlotte Rae was born in 25 or 26. So the Bickersons ran, I think, 46 to 52.
And was on television as well.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay. Let me
The point is they were really well written.
Oh, yeah.
Very adult.
Yeah.
And just barely concealed sexuality. So
Yeah.
like they love each other, but they bicker, and
But
she
they
spends
they
money,
love
but
each other.
Or they do.
It's not, just, I'm thinking about the comic strip, The Lockhorns. Isn't that what they were
Yes.
called? It's that same type of humor.
But less clean.
Yeah.
It was just barely concealed. That was sort of one of the running gags. So with the fact that of all the jokes they could have picked, that they picked one that is so about sex. Like,
I know.
Like, oh, you touched me once in 5 years. Oh, I goofed. It's like,
Yeah.
wait, so you guys are talking about sex in your little scene?
Yeah.
What else do you think that's about?
Exactly.
Just
Tootie
whatever.
called it garbage. If maybe she's right.
Smut.
That's
This is
exactly.
smut.
It's filth.
I'm not doing this.
But yeah. So Tootie refers to it. You want a vaudevillian writer voice coming out of a 15-year-old? Tootie says, well, that's the problem with it. It's old hat. What teenage girl in 1982 would refer to something as old hat?
Right?
That's so not, no. And then Mrs. Garrett recounts a Bickersons joke, like you say, and it's like, oh, good, we'll fill a minute and a half with someone else's joke. But Tootie's just annoyed at this point. And she's like, well, this is stupid, and I'm not wasting my time on this junk anymore. And she storms out, and then we close up the loop of the joke of everybody storming out on the floor that Joe is trying to wax, until finally, I think it's Blair who says, I'm not going to walk on the floor. And Joe says, do it. Everyone else has. And it's like, okay.
Because as everyone is walking around, she continues waxing the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people are actively moving about the space now.
It's like those people who, like, you see in the cartoons where they wax the floor, but then they wax themselves into a corner and they can't leave. She's waxed the entire room in the center because it's like, well, you can't walk on the floor now. Where are they supposed to go?
Yeah. We have to cook lunch that was due 10 minutes ago. So then the next scene, we go up to the bedroom, and it's immediately following. So we have Tootie storm into the bedroom. Natalie comes in right after her, and they're still shouting, and more dialogue that should not be spoken between friends. Natalie says, and I'm quoting here, I have known you to be mean and obnoxious before, but it's never been this bad. What?
This is why we're best friends.
Exactly. But that's the thing. I
love you more than my luggage.
Yeah. Yeah. Trinell started me on this, where she was the first guest here to say, read the room. And it's like, something is clearly wrong. And even though you're mad because of the insults hurled at your script, in a best friend situation, particularly between two girls, women have so much more natural empathy than boys do. And this is okay, Tootie, what is wrong? What's going on with you? What's the matter? That's what the expected obvious response is, not, well, you're being mean and obnoxious, and you always are.
Well, now we've established, though, I think the previous show, that Natalie's a little precious about her writing. So
a little bit, yeah.
She maybe still has a little bit of the big head. I don't know.
Maybe. I think we'll give her that, and the fact that she was really disappointed to learn that the Bickersons existed. Yeah,
but that's not Tootie's fault.
Yeah, but it's just put her in a mood, is what I'm saying. I don't agree, but I'm just saying
That
maybe
seems to
that's
be one of the lessons that I was getting from this show, because this show is full of lessons, right?
All of them.
And one of the lessons is that if you're upset about something, it's okay to be shitty to other people.
Yeah,
No one's going to stop you. No one's going to call you on it. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, if sitcoms have taught us anything,
be a bitch.
Yeah, and
as long as you got a good reason in your own head.
Yeah, exactly. And again, another fucking vaudevillian joke. Tootie's response to Natalie is, you just can't take criticism. You think you're writing for Broadway, and it's not even good enough for the hallway. And I'm like, you wanted a rim shot so bad there.
Right. First of all, it isn't a play. She's written a scene.
A scene. That's it. It's barely a scene. And Natalie says, you used to like my writing. And it's like, well,
you used to treat me like a high-class dame. Well, you see you.
Well, that's it. And it's just, that's such a weird line. You used to like my writing, as opposed to,
we're still doing the Bickersons. You used to like my cooking. Monday you like tuna. Tuesday you like tuna. Wednesday you like tuna. All of a sudden on Thursday you don't like tuna.
That's a great joke. That's a great, I don't know this, but I'm sure because it was radio, because they had to work with this has to be sexual but not sexual. That's Sid Caesar, I think, said it about the Your Show of Shows. He said, we didn't have the freedom to write about anything we wanted, so that forced us to be creative. And
they weren't able to be creative, so they simply tried to regurgitate as much of the old vaudeville as they possibly could in this show.
And so then during this argument, we have this trope that I've discussed before. The idea that when you're either confronting someone or telling them that you love them or you need something from them, and then turning away from them because it looks better on camera. And it looks better on stage, too. We do it as stage actors.
They talk about it in Waiting for Guffman, right? I want to do that thing where, like, you close your eyes when you're looking at the person, but then you look away, but then you open your eyes, but then you close your eyes, and you look... Yeah.
It's that thing of, so much of... People don't realize a lot of what we actors do it's making counterintuitive things look natural. They're in this confrontational thing. And camera blocking wise, Tootie turns her back to Natalie. And then Natalie says, well, what's wrong with you or something? And then Tootie doesn't respond. And she's like, Tootie? And then she turns around and it's like, okay. Finally, the question is asked. Tootie, have you been having trouble with your hearing? Well, if you pause it, we as audience members would be like, I don't think so, because a person having trouble with their hearing would never turn their back to a person with whom they're having a conversation.
Right.
Particularly if they're trying to conceal that they're having trouble with their hearing. So she would, be looking at the lips. When she's performing that scene, she never would have looked away from Natalie as an actress. And this character is going to go on to become an actress, by the way.
They're acting in this scene like she's stone deaf, right? You turn your back and suddenly Tootie can't hear anything. She has no idea you're talking. You're 3 inches from the back of her head, but she can't hear you. But earlier, Mrs. Garrett says I forget the joke now, something about French class or what. And she responds with a joke that actually makes sense. Now, Mrs. Garrett was facing the other way. And Tootie responds with a cute little comment about, I don't care about how I'm failing this class because it'll be fine. I don't remember what the joke is. It's like, okay, so she heard that. So is it that she's losing her hearing, or are they trying to say that she has gone completely deaf and is reading your lips that she's finally learned how to do?
Yeah.
Because
I agree with you.
So how anybody would pick up on the fact that, okay, and so Geri miraculously, I heard a fight, and I couldn't help interrupting.
Yeah, Geri came in and interrupted.
You're not related to me, but I'm going to walk in here and I'm saying in front of your friend, hey, I think you're having this problem with your hearing. How did she pick up on that?
You are absolutely right.
So I overheard you, and I've decided to barge in and say, I recognize the signs in you as having, because I also have some hearing loss. So I heard you through a closed door with the radio on while you were yelling, and with my bad hearing, went ding, 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 you have a problem. And I'm going to say in front of your friend, I think you have a problem. Yeah. And Natalie, it's like, I do have a problem. I don't like when people don't like my work. I've never liked it when people didn't laugh at me. Remember?
That's funny.
How silly I was talking to Tootie. I didn't say her name, and she's upset. Like, how are you supposed to know this thing? Yeah,
exactly. That is funny though. Yeah.
So many questions.
In that one little scene I saw you do downstairs, I saw enough signs that, the fact that Geri, Anyway, Geri says because of her CP, she too suffers from some hearing loss. And she's saying, I could see the sign, moving around a lot, leaning in, getting mad because you can't hear people. And it's like, we don't see her moving around a lot.
Or leaning in.
We didn't see her any leaning in. We didn't see her focusing and fixating on people's lips.
She'd follow Natalie around in the scene, but...
and getting mad because you can't hear them.
We don't know that's why she's getting mad. We just think she's being a bitch for some reason about Natalie's writing.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense of, as an elderly person loses their hearing, there's a lot wrapped around that as far as the aging process and not wanting to admit that. So
what?
I could... hey,
Speak up. What?
Yeah.
You mumble. Stop mumbling.
Well, that's just exactly.
That's what that looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's they're getting annoyed because they can't hear you. But no, you're getting, because it's like, well, you need to speak up more. Why are you not talking loudly? Look at me when you're talking to me. I'm becoming an old Jew now. But anyway.
Hey. That's my area.
Yeah.
My bailiwick.
And then Tootie does admit, yes, I'm having trouble with my hearing. And then turns away again. If you are having trouble hearing, you do not turn away from people. Jesus, that was so frustrating that even if it was they directorially missed it earlier in the earlier scene, at this point to literally have someone say, I'm having trouble hearing, why would you block it to have her with her back? It makes no sense. Well, why don't you let the doctor tell you if it's something serious? Someone says you should call the doctor. They keep calling the doctor. It's like, this is a school. There's no nurse. There's no health center. Oh, I know where there's a nurse, Mrs. Garrett, in season 1, to make it so that the den mother could teach the sex ed class. Miraculously, she became I am a registered nurse. And it's like, okay, literally 1 episode, we never hear of it again. And now she's a dietitian. Anyhow, but there's a funny Natalie line. Well, no wonder you've been acting like such a jerk. You couldn't help it. That is kind of funny, but still, even among best friends, that shit's harsh.
No, and exactly, like I said, that you're reinforcing, I think, what this episode is meant to teach us, which is if you're upset, you can't help but be a bitch to everyone you know.
Yeah, and Tootie already is good at being a little bitch. We've had that happen many times before.
She's the snitch too, right? She likes to tattle and stuff.
Yeah, she's been doing less of that because she can't hear any of it anymore. But
that was cold.
Yes. But then Natalie says, smartly, they do write in, I'm a doctor's daughter. This is something you should see a doctor about. And so Tootie admits to 2 weeks. And Natalie says, well, it could be nothing. It could be something simple, but you won't know. And Tootie explodes. Get off my case. I'm not going to the doctor. So, because Geri's left. Geri has left, and she told Geri she would call the doctor today. That's what it is. Now she's like, I'm not going to the doctor. And she says, remember I had a sty in my eye? It went away. And Natalie says, that's not the same thing. So Tootie says, you're my best friend. I'm counting on you. Don't tell anyone about this.
And here comes lesson number 2.
When you make a promise to your best friend that is endangering their health, you still have to keep the promise?
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. It is, yeah. Why would she even make a promise like that?
Yeah. Natalie does push back. You can't mess around with your hearing.
But I'll be upset. Oh, okay.
And then, no. but Tootie digs her heels in. Promise. And Natalie's like, okay, I promise. Now, we go to commercial at this point. But what we're missing in this scene is... to the best I can phrase it, what the fuck?
Exactly.
What the fuck?
So,
why is she so averse to going to the doctor? Why is this not gee, I'm not hearing very well. I should probably have that looked at.
I was wondering the same thing. Like, has she been assaulted by a doctor? Or do we know who the doctor is? Or does she have someone deaf in her family? It's only been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, look, get a wax candle. It's not a big deal. You just
Yeah,
light it in
exactly.
your ear and bada bing, it's over. I don't understand.
Exactly. Get one of those bulbs, the little squeezy
Right,
things. It's probably just a
exactly.
buildup of wax.
Of course.
It could be nothing. And
I mean, yeah, could it be something disgusting, like a bug crawled in your ear? I mean, that's a possibility,
that
I suppose.
happens,
But I would
yeah.
certainly not. Let's not go down that road. I'm like,
she could have gone to WebMD and just looked it up on the internet.
ask Nat. She could have called Natalie's father.
Yeah, she could have. Yeah.
Ask Geri. She seems to be an expert on everything.
Yeah. Natalie's father, I think, is a heart surgeon, I think. I think he's a cardiac surgeon. But yeah, you never know. But yeah, what we're not... We later do finally get a little bit of insight. It is not sufficient. A little part of me wishes that maybe the lesson of this show coulda, shoulda been, don't make the mistakes of our elders. Because it seems like a generational thing that... The generation before us was like, I'm not going to the doctor. If I can, I could be bleeding out of both of my eyes, crawling around on stumps. No, it's just get the Bactine. I'll be fine.
And here's another thing. So their first response is go to the doctor. These are not adults. These are children in school. They have an advisor. Number one, we should tell Mrs. Garrett and ask her what to do.
Yeah.
And then maybe Mrs. Garrett will go, we should call your parents and see if maybe they would like you to go to the doctor. Hello?
Parents.
No, let's all make this decision ourselves. Now, I can't drive you yet, but get thee to a doctor on your bicycle or something. Get Roy is his name.
Roy.
Get Roy to drive you on his basket or something. That was really disgusting. Get Woo! But I mean, in no point do they ever seem to be in communication with Mrs. Garrett where they perhaps might need some intervention.
Yeah.
Although that's been made clear as to why they might do that, because she's not very good at it apparently. Yeah. So what I've seen in this episode so far, but
it's
just weird to me. Like,
it is
call
just
your parents.
so weird. What I don't get what the stakes are. Why concealing the fact she's losing her hearing, and we'll get to why they finally do put in a little bit of a reason, but it's not sufficient. But before we get to Act 2, we're at commercial right now, Natalie. You know what that means.
I don't.
This is where I like to get to know my guests and get a little bit of a background about you as a performer and as an artist. Would you be so kind as to give us a little bit of a mini biography of your life? Where were you born?
I was born in New Jersey, Plainfield, New Jersey.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey and Maryland. Mm-hmm. Well, I grew up at age 28 and up. But anyway, so, and my first performance that I can remember was completely an accident. I think I was in maybe second grade.
Oh, yeah?
And I don't even remember why I did this, but for some reason I had created this whole mime routine with a chair about my mother getting in the car, where I'm her and I put on my lipstick and then I put the car in gear, but accidentally it goes in reverse and I go backwards on my chair. And I mean, I don't remember a lot of it, but there was a whole bunch of stuff. And my teacher liked it so much that I went around to every single classroom in my elementary school and did it for them.
Wow.
I was hooked. I was like, this performance stuff is wonderful. Now, I had been a failed ballerina at this point.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I took, all right, let's just start back up. I've been a singer since I was born. Mm-hmm. My mother said she could always recognize me coming down the hall because all the other babies were like, wah, wah, and I was like, wah. Sex pot even then. So,
talk about how you got dancing and singing.
So in first grade, I took one of my classmates had a mother who had a ballet school in her basement. Mm-hmm. And so I took ballet and I was kind of terrible at it. And so I was like, hey, I can act maybe. But it turns out that I couldn't sing at all until, gosh, I don't even know, like years and years and years later, I learned how to dance. And so I did another performance in I think 6th grade or something. We had this unit where we had all dance and they liked it so much that again, they made me do it for this big assembly. Yeah. So I thought,
it was ballet was the problem, but you are a dancer. So
I am.
Clearly,
it turned out to be a dancer and I turned out to be a singer, but as I was no child prodigy is I guess my point.
It was, a lot of on-the-job training.
I was a very slow learner. And still as an actress, I'm a fabulous singer. So it's just, it's just one of those things that, when I was a dancer, I would get parts because I could dance. So I was always getting these sex pot parts. Mm-hmm. And, I did a whole show about that and it turned out I was a soprano after all that. Who knew? Yeah. I've got this really ridiculous Madeline Kahn kind of voice. Yeah. But I was built like Madeline Kahn. And so I kept getting these other parts.
Well, I think you're 2 or 3 feet taller than she was.
Perhaps that is it too. But I have big boobs, and this is before people could make themselves have big boobs, so it was a big deal.
Yeah, you were tall and thin and
had
stacked.
Boobs.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So I got into
caster.
it. Exactly. I got into it that way. I never had to use the couch. Luckily, I guess I was very lucky. And I got to do a lot of touring because of the dancing. And then one day, I don't know what happened. I was singing Hi, and my friend who's a director heard me. Is like, holy crap, and he put me in a show singing Hi, and then I started getting parts, and then I gave it up. I've always loved performing. Now I like writing better. I like writing, and I like my cabarets, and I'm back to doing my mom, putting on her lipstick.
Stories,
And,
yeah.
that's what I started with, and that's what I ended up with. I like
Yeah.
to dance for grandma. What can I tell you? It's my thing.
So, yeah, because recently you've done how many cabarets now?
Oh, God, I don't even know. Let's see. I did 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 7, plus the one I did with you.
Yeah.
8.
And so, yeah, you've done a lot.
But
there's you do a lot of writing and a lot of drawing from your own experience and telling your life stories through song and humor. And that's really your groove right now.
Yeah, they're mostly my story. I mean, they're like 60% true. Was that line? It's like, oh, the story of my life is much too long and mostly untrue. So, it's just a different aspect. But I do like writing. And now I'm writing shows for other people. I have a book in my head, but it's not come out yet. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And in between all that, you said, oh, I'm going to become an acupuncturist and a doctor.
Well, that's not unrelated, because when I was a dancer, I used to always work on people who were in pain. Dancers are always in pain.
Oh, God,
And so I found myself like working on people, and I discovered that I actually like that better than the going out on stage.
Oh.
So now I'm the acupuncturist to the stars.
Yes.
Like by you.
But your transition drug was, you were an LMT for many, many years.
I was a massage therapist for a very long time, and I noticed that after all these years, I was really good at diagnosing people, and I wasn't allowed to. You're not allowed to say. So you write down all their symptoms. You say, go tell your doctor all of these things.
Yeah.
And then the doctor would come back and she'd say, oh my gosh, thank good you did that, because it turns out I have XYZ,
Oh.
So
you said, fuck, I want to be the doctor.
That's it. I'm like, I want to be able to diagnose people. Yeah. So I just decided to go to acupuncture school, because I don't really know how that happened. I just woke up one day and went, oh, fuck, I seem to be in school. Yeah. And then I done graduated, and now I do that mostly. And I still, I Christmas carol. I am a professional Christmas caroler.
Yeah.
Put on the hoop skirt and the bonnet, and I just run around and sing. Yeah. It's stupid, but it's fun.
And you and I have worked together, not just, we did a joint cabaret about all 1970s variety shows.
I know.
God,
I got another one coming up about the 70s. We'll talk.
Oh, okay. We will.
Yes, we will.
And we've worked together as you as choreographer and me as dancer. That's
right.
A sorry place to be the choreographer for me or anyone of my dancing skill level. And you have worked for the theme parks, but more as like a contract person.
Yeah, I've been a contract person for just Disney. All of the Disney parks, but just at Disney.
Just Disney.
Yeah.
And that's, but you're
I've
one
been
of
a happy camper at Animal Kingdom.
Yeah. But you're one of the few people on this show who have, at points in your life, earned your living from performing, but not exclusively through the theme parks, through full-time work at a theme park.
I have been an independent contractor for so many years.
Yeah.
I thought about going to audition for like Voices of Liberty or something, because that seems like that would have been a good niche. Most of my friends ended up there. And it's like, I remember a friend of mine said, you won't like it. It's the same thing every day with the same people. I'm like, I cannot. No, I love being an independent contractor in everything that I do. Yeah. Always.
And now as a doctor,
I work for
you are
myself.
your own boss. Yeah.
I have a bitch for a boss, but
I hate her so much.
I love it, but she gives me a lot of time off, so that's good.
Well, I always love when we perform together.
Me too.
You frequently request and ask me to guest star and let me guest star in some of your cabarets, and those are always fun.
I invite you in every one.
You do.
I do.
Yeah. And you're so nice, and I wish I could always say yes, but I try to as often as I can. So, but you know what? I would not be able to sing or hear you sing, Natalie, if I had the same problem Tootie has. So
Good
we need
segue.
Was that I think that was
lovely.
That was as clumsy, and
it was better than the writing on the show.
You read my mind. This is how we are. You read my. I was just gonna say, I think it was clunky and not as poorly written as the rest of the episode. Mm-hmm. So now we come into it's Act 2. We're back from a commercial. Tootie is wearing headphones, Walkman headphones, which is like, oh my God. And they have a distinct look about them. But what a curious, I guess if you want to listen to music, you wanted to not annoy other people. But if you're losing your hearing and you can't hear someone standing behind you.
See, I thought it was a device that she was using so that people would understand why she wasn't hearing them. It's not that I can't hear you. It's that I've got she probably doesn't even have anything on.
You're right. They're not on. I never even thought of that.
See?
Wow. Now, if someone had walked up and said...
Smarter than I look, aren't I?
Yeah. Now, someone should have walked up to her and said, hey, what are you listening to? And pull the earphone and have her be like, hey, no, don't touch that. And then be like...
That would have been good writing.
Are you listening to... What? He goes, there's nothing there. And have her be, it was between songs. Don't touch my headphones or something. That would have been awesome. Mm-hmm. That would have been really smart. So this is a typical getting ready for meal time. We're smoothing the tablecloths. Not preparing any food. Smoothing the tablecloths. And at one point, somebody comes in, I think it's Joe, comes in with the plate of bud vases with little flowers in them. They spend so much time.
Did your high school look like that?
What? Well, I went to a public high school.
Me too, but
this is a very chic private school upstate New York.
So chic private schools have buds of flowers on the table.
TV shows that need busy work for their actors to do, and so often.
How about waxing the floor again? We're about to serve lunch.
I know,
Why not?
really.
Perfect.
We had a thing happen last week where we had Blair standing next to Mrs. Garrett, and we realized they were wearing, for all intents and purposes, the same outfit. It was a ruffledy blouse with the puffy sleeves, long sleeve, A-line skirt, but Blair always has boots to cover her legs for some reason. Tootie is wearing that same outfit this week. It is a blouse with, I call it a Dorothy Michaels blouse.
Right.
Because it covers so much. It's a plaid pattern. It's mostly blue with some purple and red. And it's got ruffles right down the front. It's got ruffles all the way up to her wrist. And it has got particularly puffy sleeves, which I think if they designed it this way, they designed it to try and have the sleeves offset her boobs because she is very, very busty.
I'm more concerned with the hairdo, and I know that was the style too, but holy crap, look at her hair.
Yeah, I call it her penis head hairdo. But
it's Shields and Yarnell, remember them?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, both of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they were mimes, so that made sense. Clowns and mimes. She is not a mime or a clown.
Yeah, and there was a sort of a unisex element. The fact that Shields and Yarnell were sort of this yin and yang of, not quite masculine, not quite feminine. But this is either that or I think it is that they had to buy such a large blouse to accommodate her chest. The sleeves were just that big. She's got the
Fred Mertz pants line with that skirt. Right?
I know.
Because these pants are eating Fred Mertz. Like, they get higher and higher.
Yeah.
Her skirt is like up under her boob. Nobody wears a skirt like that.
But that skirt, it's an odd outfit, and it looks more like something Mrs. Garrett would be wearing. It looks, we know that teenage girls did dress like they were 45 back in the 80s. That was the style. But this is a particularly bad costume fail because it fits her so tightly around the chest and because the skirt is so high, she looks so old. So then Mrs. Garrett says that she's heard from Tootie's English teacher that she was clowning around in class, meaning she was asked a question and she responded in a different way because she didn't hear the question right. And so it mentions that her English grades are going down and she's also having trouble in French class. And she says, Mrs. Garrett says, what's going on? And Tootie says, it's a phase I'm going through, like wearing knickers. Oh, I'm covering my face. This is a double face palm, people. I'm like...
I thought it was code.
Yeah, okay.
It's just a phase.
Yeah, like wearing knickers. If this were England, knickers,
that was exactly what I thought.
It would be, knickers are underwear in England, but no, here, knickers are the short pants that boys wore in the 1940s.
No, women wore them It was a fad. I had knickers. Absolutely wore them.
I don't trust that the writers were talking about your knickers. I think they're talking about
I hardly knew them.
Let's kind of getting to the bare bones of this scene. It is Jo who comes in with the flowers and the bud vases. She asks Tootie if she wants to clear, meaning clearing the dishes. Mm-hmm. And Tootie says something like, "No, it's raining." And so Natalie quickly has to intervene and be like, "Ha ha ha, you're just kidding."
No, she says, she never clears when it's raining.
When it's raining,
right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah. Then Geri comes in, and we have a very poor comic timing issue go on here.
But that's appropriate.
They're laughing, and Geri walks in and says, "Oh, hey guys, I heard the laughter. It's been so long."
So we now know she bombed.
Right, but that's making a little bit of a leap there, where we have to be like, huh? It is clearly the next day. But finally, after a pause where you kind of hear this sense of, huh? From the audience, finally someone says, "Oh, your act didn't cut it?" And Geri says, "There was a tour group from Ohio." And it's like, okay, that's bad for cerebral palsy comedy? I don't know.
And the next line really confused me. They were okay until they realized I wasn't part of the package.
Yeah.
Does that mean her show wasn't free? They thought they could have her. I was not at all clear. Like, again, they should have let her write her own jokes. I was so confused.
Yeah. There's a moment where Geri looks at Tootie, or there's a sense of, so, and Tootie just says, "I have to go to the library." Excuses herself.
To buy a book.
And Mrs. Garrett's like, "They don't sell books at the library." And she's like, "Well, I need to see it before I buy." And it's just a lame joke, and she leaves. So now they're talking about Tootie when she's not there. I'm worried. Mrs. Garrett says she's spacey and impossible, and she's not getting along with people, and her grades are slipping, and she's so touchy. And then Geri says to Natalie, "She didn't go to the doctor, did she?" And Natalie's like, "She said she's feeling better." Then we hear, "Ow!" outside the door, and Tootie comes limping in with Roy. Apparently, Roy hit her with his bike. He feels terrible. He says he rang his bell and she didn't hear him. So he was delivering...
And he doesn't know how to turn his handlebars to avoid her.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
It's asking too much. Yeah, she just jumped in front of him. Anyhow, Roy feels terrible about it. And so he's having a panic attack. And he says the room is spinning. So why, they say, "Joe, take Roy into the kitchen." Yeah, Joe, the one that Roy harasses regularly, why don't you go and take him into the kitchen and get him back into shape? He says, "You can revive me, my little Florence Nightingale." And it's just like, oh, Jesus Christ, Roy. So then... Tootie's like, "I'm sure it's okay." And then Natalie says, "No, it's not okay." Natalie spills the beans. She makes Tootie fess up. "My ears have been clogged." A nice moment, she says, "Natalie, you promised you weren't going to say anything. And you're a traitor." And Geri goes, "Bitch, you promised me you would go to the doctor." And then Tootie goes so far as to say, "Natalie, not just a traitor, you're not my best friend anymore. I will never forgive you, and I will never trust you again." It's just like, okay, Geri, go help her with her. She has a scraped up knee. She was limping a little. She's not limping by the end of the episode. It was just a minor injury. Anyway, now we're up in the bedroom, and in the bedroom, Geri and Tootie have their moment. This is the sensitive moment. So Geri says, "Why didn't you go? And you're terrified." She say that? I forget. Anyhow, Tootie's response is, "What if I'm going deaf? My grandfather is deaf. I'm not going to the doctor, and I'm not wearing a hearing aid." And then she starts crying. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. Everything was supposed to be perfect. I don't want to be handicapped." And Geri is just standing there like, did you just fucking say what you just fucking said? She immediately catches herself. To Tootie's credit, as soon as it comes out of her mouth, she's like, "Oh, God." And she says, "Geri, please don't hate me." But I don't.
Right. So she doesn't actually make it okay. She doesn't go, oh, I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm owning it.
Yeah.
I don't wish to be handicapped.
Solution?
I think the handicap is not in your ears. I think it is between your ears, but that's something different.
You're so right. Yes. Geri surprisingly lets her off the hook.
Yeah.
In response to, I don't want to be handicapped.
She doesn't write her own lines, you know.
Yeah. But Geri says nobody does. And she's kind of right. That is a very Geri line.
Yes.
And you almost expect her to say, well, if I could choose not to have cerebral palsy, I would, I didn't want to have this, but guess what?
No shit, Sherlock is basically her. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to be, it's like.
No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah.
No one does.
Yeah. No.
But may I point out the fact that only for 2 weeks have you had a little trouble with your hearing. So I'm thinking you haven't suddenly gone deaf unless there was some big boom that happened outside.
Yeah.
My 90-year-old grandfather.
Yeah.
Lost his hearing, and I'm not going to wear a hearing aid too.
Yeah.
Or carry a cane.
But yeah, so this is where it at. This is literally the only explanation they provide is that her grandfather is deaf, and she says, "I don't want to wear a hearing aid." She doesn't want to, and it's like, what?
I'm not so vain that I care about wearing this hideous ass blouse.
Yeah,
but I'm not. Or this haircut, which
Yeah.
will hide whatever's going on behind my ears. But I
Exactly.
am not wearing a hearing aid. I draw the line somewhere, and that's it.
Oh my God, yeah. It's just, even if it was, if they had just put in a lot more, it's going to fix itself, it's going to be fine.
Right.
Or
It's
I'll go to the
stupid.
doctor
Right.
at some point. But the fact that there's just this sense of false urgency and angst about it. Yeah. Anyhow. And then Tootie says, it's not fair. And now here's our moment. And this is, for all intents and purposes, the Mrs. Garrett moment. But they've given it to Geri because we're dealing with disability here. And Geri says, life is not perfect. That's not what matters. When bad things happen, it's what you do about it that counts.
When life hands you lemons.
Yes. But yeah, the deal is that's not bad. That's not wrong. You would love it if she framed it with, I know this may sound cheesy. I know this may sound, but Anyway, Geri sells it as best she can.
And you're talking about the acting. Oh, I'm sorry. I had just looked at my notes here and I realized this is from before, but it's they make a big deal about that. How can I do that when you're overacting? She says, well, overacting.
Oh, does she say, yes, that's funny. So then, Mrs. Garrett comes in and says, I call the doctor and he can see you right away because doctors' offices are always...
The doctor.
The doctor.
The doctor.
That's right.
Because this is the sitcom doctor she happens to have the number for.
I know.
didn't get permission from your parents
Nope.
or anything.
Nope. Your parents aren't going to find out till after the fact.
I don't know who's going to pay for it.
Yep.
But
exactly.
you're going to the doctor.
Yep. And
Maybe there's one on campus.
But at one
That
point,
we've never seen
the
before.
infirmary, or I think they do mention that, but no, that doesn't. I agree with you. There should be. Then Tootie turns to Geri. Will you come with me? And so
Fuck you, Mrs. Garrett. I don't care if you made the appointment.
I know. Exactly. And yeah, the whole thing. Will you come with me to keep reminding me that having a disability is not the worst
Doesn't matter
thing?
what happens to me, I'll feel better than when I look at you.
Exactly. It's like,
hell?
It's
like those pretty girls like to keep ugly girls with them, right? Just to make themselves feel
geez.
prettier.
So then we go back to the cafeteria for the final scene of the episode. Guess what we're futzing with again? Tablecloths.
Not
Blair-
waxing the floor.
Yeah, Blair looks like she's polishing the silver or something. It's like, what? You need to be making food. People are hungry. So there's somehow talk. So it's Blair, Natalie, and Joe. And so there's some talk about friends, and Natalie says, why make friends? They turn against you. And Blair and Joe say to Natalie, you did the right thing. Tootie,
Eventually.
yeah. So then Tootie comes in, and Natalie immediately apologizes to Tootie and says, Tootie, I'm so sorry. I did it for you. And Tootie's like, it's okay. I'm going to be okay. And then Mrs. Garrett names the disease. It is some fluid in her ear that became infected. And the weirdest Joe thing. Joe. Suddenly they decide to make a joke out of the fact that Joe is really interested by the grossness of it. And she's like, yeah, what kind of fluid was there? And then what did they have to do? And she's like, well, they had to make a small incision and then insert a tube and drain the fluid out. And Joe was like, did you save it or something? And then later when she's like, I have to go back and have them check the tube. And Joe was like, can I go with you? We've never had this from Joe before. Like, oh, really? Did he pop any pimples on your back? It's like, it was such a weird, out of left field Joe thing. I mean,
she just didn't have a lot to do, but then neither did Blair in this. So
yeah, other than the tomboy aspect of, I like the snips and snails and puppy dog tails.
That's it. I think we've established that this is a writer's room full of old Jewish men.
Yeah.
So
true.
I guess this is what they understand the tomboy to be.
Yeah.
But not interested in girls. That would not be acceptable. But she's rough and tough and talks with this accent. And why does Tootie not apologize?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why does Tootie not
apologize? Boy, if it had not been for you snitching, I might have gone deaf completely for real. The very thing I was afraid of. So thank you so much, Natalie, for saving me from that horrible, horrible fate.
Yeah. Nope. Not at all.
Nor does Mrs. Garrico, do the voice. I can't do it.
Tootie,
you could have.
You were a little fucking bitch to your best friend.
Say thank you.
Do you have anything to say? Anyhow,
I just wanted to hear you do that.
But here's the thing. So she says there's a little tube that needs to stay in my ear. And Blair, the vain one, is like, can people see it? And
Not through
Tootie's
that
like,
hairdo.
Yeah. Well, and Tootie says, what difference does it make? I'm suddenly not concerned about vanity anymore. And she does say, if I'd waited longer, it could have damaged my middle ear permanently. And she does say to Natalie, thanks for being such a fink.
Oh, good. I guess I missed that.
And then we needed a joke to end the episode on. So we get this. The doctor says it probably started because I had a cold last month. And Natalie says, wait a minute. The cold that you caught when you went outside with a wet head? And she's like, maybe. Because I told you. Now, speaking of becoming the old Jewish man, this is where Natalie's becoming the old Jewish mother here. When I told you specifically not to go outside with a wet head, and you did anyway? And it's like, oh, yeah. Well, now, when you make fun of me for saying not to go outside with a wet head, who's going to make fun of me now? And they all quickly team up, and they're like, oh, not us. No, Natalie, we're not going to ever question you again. And Natalie just goes, sure, you say that now. End of episode clap track. And, wow.
Sometimes you just take the bad, you take the bad.
Bad, you take the bad, and more of the bad. Yeah, not their strongest episode. I'm glad it didn't start the season.
It's not just that the writing is bad, which it is.
Yeah.
It's more that it just doesn't make any sense. Like there's no flow. We don't follow Tootie and see her having trouble, or she's not having the kind of trouble she ought to be having for the kind of things she had wrong with her.
Exactly.
And why suddenly she can't hear out of both ears when it seems that she had fluid in an ear. They've given her A2, which means it was in one ear, which means she should have been hearing out of the other one.
You're right.
So I'm a little, maybe it's a doctor in me, but I'm a little puzzled by why they didn't just spend, 5 seconds making a little bit of sense. You know how sometimes like you watch a movie and you're like, where is your continuity person?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This show really needs one.
Yeah.
Really
needs one. As a doctor, Natalie, can you give any insight to, can one catch a cold from having a wet head and going outside?
Yes, if it's windy. And all those old wives' tales. Remember, I'm an acupuncturist, so I have looked at this from a different perspective.
Yeah, from Eastern medicine.
Versus Western medicine. But all those things your grandmother told you, like don't be barefoot on the floor. Don't sit. This is a big one. Don't sit on something cold or wet for very long. Like if you go to a game or something, bring a cushion. That's a great way to get a UTI otherwise.
Oh, wow.
The back of your neck, the top of your head, we call them, they call them ills in Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
Wind is a big one. Damp is another one. So you put them together.
Yeah.
asking for trouble. Not that you'll catch a cold, but if you've had germs already kind of sitting on your body trying to get inside, give them a wet head and some wind and they get right inside and go, wee! And
Wow.
yeah, so that is true.
That is true.
That is true.
I had wondered if it was an old wives' tale or whatever.
Yeah, it's true. And cover your neck. You go to a Chinese medical school, you see everybody's wearing scarves around their neck because that's a great way to get sick. So you got to keep your back of your neck covered.
Oh.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Not
Thank
so much,
you.
but yeah, you're welcome. My biggest concern, I have to be honest, in watching this, because remember, I don't really know the show so well. Is Mrs. Garrett always as clueless? Like, are they really trying to learn the facts of life from her? Because that is obviously why it's taking so long. She just doesn't ever seem to parse out good advice in moments that are screaming for it.
She's better about it typically, but I think in this episode they wanted to give that distinction to Geri. They wanted to highlight her as the person with the disability. This is not a very good Mrs. Garrett episode at all. Other than her swinging into action and saying, we're going to the doctor now. That's good. That's on brand for her. But yeah, the other stuff, it's like, yeah, you're their mentor and you're an adult, but more important than that, you're a character on a sitcom. So that's what trumps all, sadly. So we're at the end of the episode, and what else? I feel like we went very quickly through your life. You recently got married this year.
I did.
To a fabulously lovely woman,
Isn't
Shirley.
she fabulous?
She is awesome.
It's exciting.
And yeah, indeed.
Took me a while.
Yeah.
and quite a few tries, but
and that's it. And the other thing, I guess I didn't mention it at the beginning, is that you are also Jewish.
Yeah, so every year I would have the same 3 thoughts. Yay, Christmas is coming. Oh, but I'm Jewish. Oh, but it's my birthday.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're a Christmas baby.
Yes, I am. So
I
it enabled me to participate a little bit in all of the goings on. So,
yes,
yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
on Christmas Day, everybody say Merry Christmas and Happy Birthday.
I love how the stores are closed and everybody takes the time off and celebrate my birthday. It's so wonderful.
Just for you.
I know,
exactly.
right? Although I could never have a party in school on my birthday. I brought all those cupcakes and I never got to have any. But
damn it.
I'm allergic to gluten anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But it's funny because I am a Jewish person with a Christmas birthday married to a minister. So, yeah.
There you go. You've got all bases covered.
I do. I absolutely do. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing
This was fun. Even if the show wasn't, this was fun.
I know, exactly. That's what we hope. I'm hoping to take the pain and ease it and make it a little bit better. Similar to what you do. I'm a doctor of vintage television. Except in all the ways that I'm not. So do come back again. I hope we have you on again.
I absolutely would love to be had again.
And I look forward to seeing your next cabaret and the next time we get to perform together.
Yay.
All right.
Soon.
Bye.
Bye.
And there you have it. That was Natalie Doliner. Such a fun lady. Always enjoy whenever I spend time with her, and we just love to talk about this type of stuff and TV and movies. You've just heard a tiny snippet of a typical conversation between the two of us. This week, I don't really have any other points to make. I'm actually on a deadline. The show drops on December 4th, early Wednesday morning. Well, guess what? I'm recording this on Tuesday night. I have hours to get this show completed, edited, converted, uploaded, and do all the stuff, so I'd better get to it. Next week, I'm going to be watching Season 4, Episode 4, The Oldest Living Graduate. And my very special guest is going to be actor, funny man, and physical comic Brandon Roberts. Thank you again for listening to this week's show, and remember, the facts of life are all about you. Let's Face the Facts was produced, written, hosted, and edited by me, David Almeida. My theme song was beautifully arranged and recorded by Ned Wilkinson. Our website is facethefactspod.com. You have to drop the let's. And that's where you can find extra pictures, video, and audio extras from the digital cutting room floor. Follow the show on social media. We're everywhere under the handle Face the Facts Pod. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/FaceTheFactsPod. And don't forget, go to your favorite podcatchers and subscribe, rate, and review. Tune in again next week for another thrilling episode of Let's Face the Facts.